A skier found a huge metal door exposed after an avalanche. When authorities arrived and saw what was inside, the entire mountain was evacuated immediately. In the high, silent peaks of the Alps, a skier exploring a remote, off-piste slope stumbled upon a secret that had been entombed in ice for over a century. A recent avalanche had scoured the mountainside, revealing a mysterious rusted iron door built directly into the rock face. When authorities were finally able to pry it open, they uncovered a time capsule from a forgotten war. But what they found inside was not treasure or historical relics. It was a discovery so dangerous that it triggered an immediate, full-scale evacuation of the entire mountain. The ghost they had awakened was not just a memory of war, it was a live and volatile threat. To understand what lay behind that iron door, we must journey back to one of the most brutal, bizarre, and forgotten fronts of the First World War. When we think of World War I, we picture the muddy, trench-filled landscapes of the Western Front in France and Belgium. But there was another war, fought in a vertical world of stone and ice. This was the Alpine Front, a 400-mile-long battle line that snaked its way through the jagged peaks of the Dolomites and the Alps, pitting the soldiers of the Kingdom of Italy against the forces of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. From 1915 to 1918, these two armies fought a bitter war of attrition at altitudes of over 10,000 feet. This conflict came to be known as the White War, or Guerra Bianca, because the greatest enemy was often not the opposing army, but the mountain itself. The conditions were beyond horrific. The soldiers lived and fought in a world of perpetual cold, with winter temperatures regularly plunging to 30 degrees below 0 Celsius or minus 22 Fahrenheit. They faced hurricane-force winds, blinding blizzards, and the constant, terrifying threat of avalanches. In fact, it is estimated that more soldiers on the Alpine Front were killed by avalanches, which they called the White Death, than by enemy combat. A single, massive avalanche in December of 1916, known as White Friday, killed an estimated 10,000 soldiers on both sides in a single day. The very act of survival in this environment was a daily battle. Faced with these impossible conditions, both the Italian Alpini and the Austrian Kaiserschützen, elite mountain troops from both sides, began to engage in one of the most incredible engineering feats of the war. They began to wage war inside the mountains. Using hand drills and dynamite, thousands of soldiers worked in freezing, low-oxygen conditions to tunnel deep into the solid rock and even into the living glaciers themselves. They carved out a vast, hidden network of barracks, supply depots, command posts, and fighting positions, creating entire cities within the ice. This allowed them to protect their men from the constant artillery bombardments and the brutal weather. The White War was a conflict fought as much by miners and engineers as it was by soldiers. It is this secret subterranean world that now, over a century later, is slowly being revealed. Our story's protagonist, a man we'll call Marcus, is an experienced off-piste skier and mountaineer. He is drawn to the remote, unskied slopes of the Alps, not just for the thrill, but for the profound sense of history that permeates these mountains. In the early spring of 2024, he was exploring a remote glacier in a region known for its intense WWI activity. A massive avalanche had occurred in the area a few days prior, a common event in the spring melt. As he skied near the avalanche's path, a glint of sunlight off something metallic caught his eye. It was high up on a rock face that had been scoured clean by the force of the snow and ice. Intrigued, he removed his skis and began the difficult climb up the rocky slope. As he got closer, he realized it was an old, heavy, and deeply rusted iron door, set within a concrete frame that had been built directly into the side of the mountain. The hinges were fused with a century of rust, and the door itself was slightly buckled, a testament to the immense power of the avalanche that had finally revealed it to the world. He stood before it, his breath misting in the cold air, completely in awe. He was looking at a lost entrance to one of the forgotten bunkers of the White War, a place that had been sealed and hidden by the slow, creeping movement of the glacier for over 100 years. He tried to pull on the rusted handle, but it wouldn't budge. The door was frozen solid, a silent guardian of whatever lay within. He knew this was a significant discovery. He took several high-resolution photos, carefully logged the GPS coordinates, and began the long, difficult journey back down the mountain to report his find to the local authorities. He had found a time capsule, but he had no idea that he had also just found a ticking time bomb. When Marcus arrived back in the small alpine village and presented his findings at the local police station, he was met with a mixture of intrigue and professional caution. But when he showed them the high-resolution photographs of the iron door and the GPS coordinates, the mood in the room shifted. The authorities immediately recognized the significance. They contacted the Regional Historical Society and the Austrian military. A joint team was quickly assembled, consisting of alpine police, mountain rescue specialists, and a military historian. The next day, a helicopter carried the team up to a high-altitude landing zone, and they began the trek to the newly discovered bunker. When they arrived, they were met with the same silent, imposing sight that had greeted Marcus. The door was a formidable obstacle. After a careful assessment, the team decided against using explosives, fearing it could trigger another avalanche or destabilize the rock face. Instead, they brought in heavy-duty hydraulic tools and a gas-powered cutting torch. For hours in the thin, cold mountain air, they worked on the century-old door. With a final agonizing groan of tortured metal, the rusted hinges broke, and the heavy iron door was pulled open. It revealed a dark, narrow passage leading deep into the mountain, and a rush of cold, perfectly still air that had been trapped inside for over 100 years. The team leader, an experienced mountain rescue expert, was the first to enter, his powerful headlamp cutting through the absolute darkness. The others waited outside, a safe distance away. He was gone for only a few moments. But when he re-emerged into the sunlight, his face was pale, and his expression was one of pure, unadulterated horror. He was not just shouting, he was screaming a single frantic command to his team, his voice echoing across the silent mountain. "Back! Everybody get back now! Evacuate the area! Evacuate!" What the team leader had seen inside was not a historical treasure, it was a ghost of war that was still very much alive. The bunker was not a barracks or a command post. It was a forgotten ammunition depot. His flashlight beam had fallen upon dozens and dozens of old wooden crates, many of them rotted and broken open, spilling their contents onto the floor. It was a cache of unexploded ordnance from the First World War. There were stacks of Austrian artillery shells, piles of stick grenades known as potato mashers, and boxes of rifle ammunition. And this was not a stable, safe collection of historical artifacts. This was a discovery of extreme and immediate danger. The science of old munitions is a terrifying field. Over the course of a century, the chemical compounds inside these weapons begin to break down and become incredibly unstable. Old dynamite, for example, can weep nitroglycerin, a notoriously volatile substance that can detonate with the slightest vibration or change in temperature. The intricate firing mechanisms and detonators inside the artillery shells and grenades corrode, and this corrosion can make them hypersensitive. The team leader knew that the entire bunker was, in effect, a massive, unstable booby trap. A single misstep, a falling rock from the ceiling, or even the vibration from a helicopter flying too close could have been enough to trigger a cataclysmic chain reaction explosion powerful enough to blow the entire side of the mountain off. The discovery immediately triggered a full-scale military response. The entire mountain, including all nearby skiing areas and hiking trails, was declared a restricted military zone and evacuated. A specialized explosive ordnance disposal, or EOD, team was flown in. For the next several weeks, these highly trained bomb disposal experts undertook the incredibly dangerous and painstaking task of making the bunker safe. Dressed in heavy blast suits, they entered the dark, cold bunker and began the process of assessing and neutralizing the century-old explosives one by one. As they cleared the munitions, they also found the sad human remnants of the soldiers who had served there. They found a rusted soldier's helmet, a tin cup, and a small waterlogged book that may have once been a diary or a prayer book, its pages now fused into an unreadable block. These small personal items were a poignant reminder that this place of immense danger had once been a place of work, of boredom, and of fear for the young men of the White War. The discovery of this bunker is not an isolated incident. It is part of a new and growing phenomenon across the Alps, a direct and unexpected consequence of climate change. As global temperatures rise, the ancient alpine glaciers are melting at an unprecedented rate, and as they recede, they are revealing the long-frozen secrets of the White War. Every summer, new discoveries are made. Entire bunkers, trenches, and barracks, perfectly preserved in the ice for a century, are now emerging into the sun. Hikers are finding old rifles, canteens, and barbed wire, and most tragically, the melting ice is giving back the soldiers themselves. The preserved mummified bodies of young men who were lost in avalanches or fell into crevasses are now being found, their stories finally coming to an end. The mountains are, in essence, giving up their dead. This glacier archaeology has become a race against time for historians, trying to recover and preserve these artifacts before they are destroyed by exposure to the elements. The story of the skier and the hidden bunker is a profound and powerful reminder that the past is never truly buried. It is frozen, waiting. And as our world warms, the ghosts of our most violent conflicts are, quite literally, rising from the ice to meet us.